Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video we've got a hypercarry Himeko showcase. Himeko is definitely a pretty underrated character, so I decided to raise mine up and pit her against Memory of Chaos 10 to see how she'd do. But I was more interested to see if she could do both sides, so we're gonna see if she can do side 1 and side 2 and see how fast she can complete them. This should be interesting because neither of the sides are vulnerable to fire, and Himeko is of course fire. So the team I decided to go with is a team of Himeko, Tingyun, Bronya, and Luocha. The idea behind this team is of course the traditional hypercarry setup. We're gonna have Tingyun and Bronya to massively buff Himeko, trying to line up all of the buffs when Himeko has her ultimate available, and then we've also got Luocha in here who's gonna be taking care of sustain. But the cool thing about Luocha is he's got a bit of a hidden synergy with Himeko. Himeko gets a lot of extra talent activations when paired with other units who can break a lot. And Luocha is a healer who can break in AoE for an imaginary. And there's a lot of imaginary weak enemies in Memory of Chaos 10 side 1. So the idea is that Luocha should be able to fuel Himeko's talent and hopefully improve her performance. So let's see how Himeko did in Endgame, and if she's actually really that underrated. Enjoy the showcase, and I'll see you guys at the end to talk about how it went.
兵士を助け。ありがとう。人間は星空を掌握する欲望を隠さん。私もよ。やっとよさけ。一つのエンド。ちょっとナイス。一心同期。戦闘は設計みたいなものですが避けられないか。いい動きをもうじゃ最大。輪を持って保つ。代価を払ったんだ。我に力を。まだ分かってな。人間は星空を掌握する欲望を隠さぬ。私は発目作動しました。涼しいですね。おやすみなさい。千の珍奇は一心同期。ちょっとナイス。避けることを知って人間の星空を掌握する欲望を隠さぬ。私はやっ客をもてなさないか。代価を払って我に力を。我々の塔に嵐に守る責任を求めて打ち下せ。まだ分かってない人間の星空を掌握する欲望を隠さぬ。私は人間の星空を掌握する欲望を隠さぬ。私もお別れだ。やったよ先。適切な援助だった。客をもてなさないか。ジョー大佐。全部地域の一心のジャック直さない。やっよそにダメだ。足元気をつけて。兵士を授けん。貴様が回れですね。もうじゃ再臨。避けられない我に力を。我々は塔に嵐に振り守る責任のために打ち下せ。まだ分かった。人間は星空を掌握する欲望を隠さぬ。私も
So how did hypercarry Himeko end up feeling? Well, in terms of the speed and damage performance, this team definitely brought what was needed. We got side 1 done in 5 cycles and side 2 done in 6 cycles. Now, the fact that none of the enemies were vulnerable to fire essentially makes this a brute force scenario, so I'm more than happy with the clear speed here for this Himeko team. Now, it goes without saying, if you don't have all the team members we have here, or you have different gear, your results may vary. So before you raise her up, make sure you've got a team in mind, and you're going to be able to get the damage that you need to, and make up for any of the damage which I have that you don't. Of course, if you have a few Eidolons, better relics, or if you have a light cone like mine, it can help, but definitely be aware of the light cone scenario, because Before Dawn is a very powerful light cone, and Erudition don't have that many good free-to-play options right now. Next up is the survivability performance. So we're running a 1 sustained team here with Luocha as our man, and he did a pretty good job of keeping everyone alive. Especially on side 2, he had no issues as most of the damage was AoE. But on side 1 we ran into a few problems, and that's because there's a lot of single target damage going out. And if the enemies decide to target one of our allies here without a preservation unit to soak up hits, or without any mitigation, they were dying if we got unlucky. And that really comes down to whether or not you have enough HP on your supports, or if Luocha's heal is up in an emergency. So there's definitely a bit of RNG in surviving with this team when there's a lot of single target damage going out. What made this a little bit more challenging is because Himeko is 100% AoE pretty much, all of the enemies are going to die around the same time if they have similar HP pools. This made side 1 even harder because the robot and the shade had the same amount of health, they died pretty much at the same time, meaning we were playing on the hardest difficulty with a higher chance to die for the whole entire duration of that side, meaning it was even more challenging to keep everybody alive. It's definitely a viable team, but it can be a little bit shaky, and without Luocha, I definitely think the team would struggle with a character like Bailu or Natasha instead. So you might want to add a preservation unit in if you think you can manage the DPS loss. Alright, so last up is investment. So our Himeko doesn't have the most insane relics, but she's got some pretty good ones. In terms of traces, she's got reasonable level traces, but nothing insane. She's of course using Before Dawn, and the damage would definitely be lower without it, so you need to keep that in mind. However, we are at E0, so if you have some extra Eidolons, you can claw back some of the damage there. In terms of the team, Bronya felt entirely replaceable. You could use a character like Yukong or Asta, you don't have to bring Bronya, although you may have a bit more trouble with the Sanction robots this time around without the advance forward. But Luocha definitely felt like he was pretty needed this time around, so maybe you'd have to alter the team if you were wanting to use a different healer, so definitely something to keep in mind. Alright, closing thoughts. I think Himeko is definitely underrated. She's a lot better than I thought she'd be at the start of this video. But I don't think she's going to be S+ anytime soon. So if you're going for your first memory of Kiosk 10 3-star, she's probably not at the top of your priority list. But if you really like the unit and you really like the playstyle, she's absolutely someone who can be viable if you can get the right team for her and of course have the right level of investment. So overall, I definitely think she's pretty decent. What I really like about Himeko is her talent. It is her defining feature, and building around it is definitely going to be the thing I want to try next. Using Luocha showed me that you can put out a ton of extra damage. A lot of enemies on side 1 were weak to imaginary, and they spawned a lot, so it allowed me to trigger this talent way more than I was expecting, giving me tons of free energy and damage, and that was a lot of fun. In addition to that, you can pretty much consistently cycle 0 every single wave 1 thanks to this talent. If you break any enemy for any type on the entry of the battle, it'll trigger this talent, and with Tingyun on the party, you can give Himeko her ultimate straight away, and then she can go ahead and blow up the whole field, and that's going to lead to that cycle 0. In the future, I want to try out more Nihility characters, because if you guys didn't know, if you break an elite with this, it actually gives you 3 charges instead of 1, triggering the talent immediately. So Nihility and Himeko definitely has some pretty interesting potential, and you might be able to trigger the talent a whole bunch. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to let the algorithm know it was worth watching by giving the video a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. Until next time, hope you guys enjoyed. Cheers.